Hello everyone, welcome to IELTS Academic Writing Task 1. Today we're going to look at line and pie charts. So how to write the academic task 1 when you're given two different types of charts together. Okay, this is an example of what you might get if you're given two types of charts together. So here we can see we have 4 pie charts at the top and we have a line graph here at the bottom. So what you will have to do is respond to the task by describing the pie charts and the line graph, doing a comparison within each of these and also between each of them. So we're going to have a look, we're going to break it down and have a look at step by step how we complete this task. And at the end of this class, I'm going to give you a chance to practice the skills and the tips that we cover. So this is the end product. As you can see, we have 4 paragraphs. Each one of them has a particular function. So the introduction just introduces the charts. It just tells us what the charts are about. The general overview is just a sentence or two, just generally giving us the main trends. Then we move into a detailed description with data and statistics, and then we end with a summary. So what do you have to do for writing task 1? You have to summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and making comparisons where relevant. So let's walk through these instructions step by step. Summarizing, selecting, reporting, and making comparisons. So summarize, it means just tell the main idea of the chart. What are they about? Are they about food consumption, oil consumption, the amount of television watched per hour, the amount of activities done in schools? Okay, so the main idea of the charts. Then you need to select. Select means choose the most important, interesting, or noticeable features. For example, the most or the least. You then need to report these features. So introduce them and give their overview. So these are what we call the main trends. You also need to compare these features by explaining what the data represents and providing statistics from the graph. And then summarize again by restating the main features. So the 4 things you have to do for this task that you're given in the instructions is summarize, select, report, and compare. I'm going to show you how to do each of these things using a specific structure. So you need to write a 150-word response in 20 minutes. And here is the secret formula. Here's a general overview of it. So it contains an introduction, a general overview, a detailed description, and a summary. Let's look at each of these parts in more detail. So the introduction is a paraphrase of the prompt. Okay, you're given the charts and then you're given a prompt. A prompt basically tells you what the charts show. For your introduction, all you need to do is paraphrase this. I'm going to show you how. The next part is a general overview. This is where you select the main features or the most noticeable trends and you report them. You don't give any data at this stage. You would just say something like, overall, we can see that data showed an increase over time or a decrease over time. That's it. Then we move into the detailed description. This is where you would say the data showed an increase over time of 50%. You can stay started at 50 and ended at 100. So this is where you support the information that you gave in the general overview by adding statistics and also comparing data. You'll then finish with a summary. This is where you summarize the main trends and link the two charts. And we're going to have a look at how we do that. Step 1, writing your introduction. You rewrite or paraphrase the task description or the prompt. For example, here is our prompt. The charts below show the budget spent on restaurants and home cooking and the number of meals per year on fast food and sit-down restaurants over a 40-year period. Here are your instructions. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. Okay, so it tells us that the charts show the budget spent on restaurants and home cooking, as well as the number of meals per year on fast food and sit-down restaurants. So let's just have a quick look here. What do the pie charts show? The percentage of food budget spent on restaurant meals, which is in blue, and the percentage of food budget spent on home cooking, which is in brown. Okay, what does the line graph show? The line graph shows fast food versus sit-down restaurants. And here it tells us it's the number of meals per year. So the number of sit-down restaurant meals is in yellow, and the number of fast food meals is in blue. So here we have generally a comparison in the pie charts between eating at home and eating out. Then the line graph says, okay, we're going to look at just eating out, and we're going to compare fast food to restaurants. Okay, so a model answer for our introduction or a paraphrase of the prompt would be the charts below. We can change that to the data provided, because charts are all about data, okay, providing data. Instead of the verb show, we can say gives information. About what? About the money spent on eating out and eating at home, instead of the budget spent on restaurants and home cooking. So restaurants, I said eating out, and home cooking, I changed it to eating at home. The last part of the prompt says, and the number of meals per year on fast food and sit-down restaurants over a 40-year period. I paraphrase that into, as well as a comparison between the number of fast food and restaurant meals over 4 decades. So instead of over a 40-year period, I said over 4 decades. Okay, so I've basically taken the question and I've broken it down. And by breaking it down, it makes it much easier for me to paraphrase it. And I should end up with one sentence, a one-sentence paraphrase, where I have rewritten the question. So here we have the original, and then I put all of my paraphrase parts together, and here I have my paraphrase. So this is my introduction. We're now going to move on to the second part of your response, which would be a general overview. This is where you first have to identify and then describe the main trends. So let's have another look here. We have the percentage of food budget or money spent on restaurants in blue, home cooking in brown, and then a comparison between the number of fast food meals in blue and sit-down restaurants in yellow. So the first thing we want to do is look at the pie charts. Let's ignore the line graphs for now. We just need to focus on one at a time. So let's look at the pie charts. What are the main trends? What do you notice about the blue, the data represented in blue? Okay, and then what do you notice about the data represented in brown. To answer this question, we need to look at what happened to the data. Did it increase or decrease over time? So, the percentage of money spent on restaurant meals did what? What happened to that data? The percentage of money spent on restaurant meals increased. We can see it went from 10 to 15 to 35 to 50. So that's a clear increase. What happened to the percentage of money spent on home-cooked meals? Well, the percentage of money spent on home-cooked meals decreased. So these are your main trends. The main trends that you identify will become your general overview, your paragraph 2. But this is only the first half of our overview because we also have a line graph. So we've identified the two main trends of the pie charts, which is an increase in money spent on restaurants and a decrease in the money spent on home-cooked food. So putting those sentences together, I have significantly the percentage of money spent on restaurant meals increased over the time period, while the percentage of money spent on home-cooked meals decreased. Okay, we need to finish the overview now by also giving or describing the main trends of the line graph. So let's have a look at the line graph. What are the main trends? To answer this question, we need to look at what happened to the data. Did it increase or decrease over time? And if so, how much? Rapidly, slightly, consistently? So, the number of fast food meals did what significantly? The number of fast food meals rose significantly. Now, I could say increased, but I already used it when I was talking about the data in the pie charts. So instead of increased, I'll use the synonym rose. Then what happened to the number of sit-down restaurant meals? They also rose, but they rose more steadily, okay? We can see that fast food rose significantly. There was quite a large, steep increase. Whereas although sit-down meals increased, it was more of a steady increase. So these are our main trends. Again, they will form our general overview. So that sentence would be, the number of fast food meals rose significantly, whereas the number of sit-down restaurant meals rose steadily. So now we've identified the main trends of the pie charts and the line graph, and we need to put those two together. So we need to look first at the first chart, ask ourselves what happened to the data, and write 1 to 2 sentences. Then we need to look at the second chart, ask ourselves what happened to the data. Did it increase, decrease, a lot, a little, and write 2 sentences. We need to put those sentences together for our general overview paragraph, which will look like this. Significantly, the percentage of money spent on restaurant meals increased over the time period, while the percentage of money spent on home-cooked meals decreased. We got that from the pie charts. Then the number of fast food meals rose significantly, whereas the number of sit-down restaurant meals rose steadily. And we got that from the line graph. And we put it all together into one general overview paragraph. Now we have that information. We've identified the main trends or what happened to the data. Now we move on to the detailed description. This is where we actually add the statistics, we add the numbers, and we compare them. So how do we do that? We don't just pick random statistics or random numbers. We have to use the trends that we discussed in the general overview and build upon them by adding statistics. The sentences in the detailed overview should follow the same order as the sentences in the general overview. This means that our writing will be coherent, logical, and easy to follow. So we need to review what our main points were. The money spent on restaurant meals increased. The money spent on home-cooked meals decreased. The number of fast food meals rose significantly. The number of sit-down restaurant meals rose steadily. Okay, so these were the trends that we identified, and these were the order in which we presented them in our general overview. So we're going to take those ideas, use the same order, and elaborate now in our next paragraph. So we elaborate these points and we follow the same order. So on the left here, I've just put the main points of the general overview so that we can remember what they were. Because to write our detailed description, we need to match those. So the first point was percentage of money spent on restaurant meals increased, which is this data here. So now I want to support that by giving more detail. The increase in money spent on fast food was significant, rising 40% from 10% in 1970 to 50% in 2000. So you notice that I didn't say what happened in every year. I didn't say in 1970 it was 10%, and then it was 15% in 1980, and then it rose by 20% in 1990. I don't need to say every single thing that happens. I'm just picking what's significant. Significant that it rose 40% over the entire period, from 10 to 50. Okay. Number one, we don't have, it's only 150 words, so we don't have enough word count to describe every single thing. And also we need to show that we have selected the relevant data, because that's what they told us in our instructions. We need to select relevant data. So that's relevant. Then we need to follow on with the second point, which was the percentage of money spent on home cooked meals decreased. And we can see that. So supporting that with a detailed description. Conversely, people spent less on home cooking, which started at 90% in 1970 and ended in 50% in 2000. So here I've given evidence for how home cooked meals decreased. I've given evidence. I've said that it started at 90 and ended at 50. Next point is the number of fast food meals rose significantly. Okay, so now I'm looking at this part, at the line graph, and I need to give evidence for that in my detailed description. So my evidence is fast food meals became more popular, rising steadily from 20% in 1970 to almost 30% in 1980. 30% in 1980, and then skyrocketing to almost 90% in 2000. So why did I select that data? Well, it was interesting that it started here, but it wasn't a consistent rise. Okay, it rose here steadily. It rose a little bit from 20 to 30, and then from 30, it went upwards to almost 90. Okay. Then the number of sit-down restaurant meals rose steadily. I need to give evidence for that. The number of sit-down meals also increased, but more steadily, rising from 20% in 1970 to 50% in 2000. Okay, I don't need to say what happened here and here. It's not really that important. Okay, there was nothing significant. There wasn't a huge rise or a huge fall. It was just a steady increase. Okay, so I can just describe where it started and where it ended. So it's all about selecting the relevant data and choosing what's important to write about. So you can see that I've actually followed the same order, the information from the general overview in my detailed description, but I've just added the data. So putting it together, I have this paragraph. Okay, so I've started off with my introduction where I paraphrased the task description. I then looked at the pie chart and the line graph and I asked myself, what happened to the data? Did it rise or did it fall? And I described that. Then I went into my detailed overview where I gave evidence of the rises and the falls by quoting statistics, by selecting the most relevant and important statistics. And now I'm moving on to my summary. This is the end. This is the last sentence. So this is where I summarize the main trends, but I also make a link between the two charts. Okay, so for my summary, I need to ask myself a question. What's the overall trend among the pie charts? The overall trend among the pie charts are that people spent an increasing amount of money on eating out. Yeah. Then I need to ask myself, what's the overall trend among the line graphs? Well, we can see that the money spent on eating out rose. And then how did the pie charts and the line graph relate to each other? Most of that money was spent on fast food meals. So here I have more people started eating out. And out of the eating out, between fast food and restaurant, fast food was the most popular. So this is our summary. Putting these sentences together, I end up with this. So here is my final product. My introduction, which is my paraphrase, general overview, where I talk about an increase and a decrease, and my detailed description. Okay, and then ending up with a summary and a link between the two charts. So let's recap. Introduction, paraphrase the prompt. And if you have to, break it up. Okay, if it looks like it's too long or too much, break up the ideas and then paraphrase them individually. You then want to write your general overview, but before you do that, you have to ask yourself, what do I see? What is the data doing? Is it rising? Is it falling? Is it changing? Okay, and then select those features and write them. Then you need to write your detailed description. You're using the features that you selected in the general overview, and then you're adding statistics to support that and compare the data. And then last part is your summary, summarizing the main trends. So when you get this task, you really need to look, if you're given a task that has two parts, a pie chart and a line graph, look at each part separately. What does the first part show you? What happened to the data? And remember, don't report everything. Okay, it's not a description of every single number or every year. You're just choosing the most significant. Okay, let's practice. I have another one here for you. It's a little bit easier because it's just one of each. The charts below show the typical daily demand for electricity and what it's used for. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. So line graph shows us typical daily demand for electricity in units. And these numbers here, we don't know what they're for, so don't worry about those. We don't really need them. And we have units of electricity used in winter, units of electricity used in summer. So that's how much electricity was used overall. Then the pie chart tells us what that electricity was used for. We have heating rooms and water. We have ovens, kettles, washing machines, appliances. We have lighting, TV, radio, vacuum cleaners, food mixers, and electric tools. So I would like you, I'm going to give you 1 minute to write an introduction, paraphrasing the prompt. Here's the prompt, okay? Now here are your instructions. You don't need to paraphrase those, just the prompt. Okay, so you've got 1 minute to do that, and your time starts now. When you're ready, you can type your introduction into the chat, and I'll have a look at them. Okay, guys, really good answers. So I've had a look at them all. Very nice summaries. Here's my example. The charts below show electricity consumption in terms of demand and usage. But all of yours were great. So each one was different and very well written. Okay. Now we want to move on to the next part, part 2, which is writing our general overview. Now remember, we want to first look at the line graph, and then we're going to look at the pie chart. So we're going to separate them so that we don't get confused. So firstly, identify the main trends in the line graph. What is the trend here? So I'll give you just 1 minute. So just looking at the line graph. Okay, let's have a look. So there's a little bit of uncertainty in the responses about the main trends of the line graph. So let's have a look. Basically, there was more electricity usage in winter than in summer. Yeah, so consistently, the electricity was always higher in winter. So this is one trend. The second trend we can say is that both seasons showed a steady fluctuation. So a fluctuation meaning a rise, a fall, a rise, a fall, a rise, a fall, which is what happened in winter. And also in summer, a fall, a rise, a fall, a rise, and a fall. So this is what we call a fluctuation. But these are not severe fluctuations. They're not going up and down suddenly. They're quite steady. Okay, so here I have identified two trends in the line graph. First trend is more electricity was used in winter than in summer. And the second trend is both seasons fluctuated. So here are my trends for my line graph. Next, identify the main trends in the pie chart. So what do you notice? Remember just to select the most important or noticeable feature. Good, you guys got it. So heating rooms and water made up the highest amount of electricity usage. Excellent. Okay, so you all got the main trend there. I've also just added another trend that I noticed was that there was a similarity between two categories here. So lighting and electronics shared an equal amount of usage. Okay, so if you wanted to add that as an extra, you could, but definitely the most important feature is that heating made up the majority of all electricity usage. So well done. So now we want to put these trends together for our general overview. So what do we have here? More electricity was used in winter than in summer. Both seasons showed a steady fluctuation. Heating rooms and water made up the highest amount of electricity usage, and lighting and electronics shared an equal amount. So these are the trends that I selected and that I chose to report on. Now we want to take those and use them to write our detailed description. Okay, so you're going to have to decide which statistics you're going to use to support your trends. So this might take you a little bit longer. I'm going to give you about 5 minutes for this. Okay, guys, good job. So let's have a look at what I had written. Though both seasons showed a fluctuation, electricity usage in summer stayed below 2,000 units. So electricity usage in summer didn't rise above 2,000 units. That was the maximum. In winter, it fluctuated from 30,000 at the lowest to just under 50,000 at the highest. Okay, so here I just mentioned where it started and then the highest point. Heating comprised the majority of electricity usage at 52.5%. And then I also mentioned, because I had some words left over and some extra time, that lighting and electronics both made up 50% of total electricity usage, and household appliances was just higher at 17.5. Now, you didn't really have to put that. If your task was short or your response was short and you had a few extra words, you could. Again, the main thing to talk about would be this, the most noticeable feature. Now, be careful, guys, when you're talking about data, some of you write long sentences and put lots of different data in one sentence. Now, for the reader, that makes it very confusing. So with this part of the task, you want to be careful to use simple sentences and just talk about, one statistic at a time per sentence. Otherwise, it's too much to take in and it becomes confusing. So you can see here that I mentioned both seasons showed a fluctuation, blah, blah. Summer stayed below 20,000 units, full stop. New sentence. In winter, it fluctuated at 30,000 at the lowest to just under 50,000 at the highest. So here, although I've included two statistics, I've done so in a way that it's a comparison of one idea. If you're putting together summer and winter all in one sentence, then it sort of starts to lose coherence. So here again, one statistic per sentence, one statistic per sentence. So unless you are able to write clear sentences that include more than one statistic, separate them into individual sentences. Okay, so now you've actually written your introduction, you've written your general overview, and you've written your detailed summary. So this is the last part of the task. Summarize the main trends and compare the charts. Okay, one sentence only, 1 to 2 sentences. So guys, just a tip, in the summary, because there are two charts, there are actually two trends that we need to summarize here. Yep. Okay, well done. So here is my summary. Electricity demand fluctuated in winter and summer, but usage in winter was higher. So that's the main point of the line graph, is that winter has the highest usage of electricity. And then by far, most of that electricity is used for heating rooms and water. Okay, so there I am. I've just summarized the main trends. So here is my answer, putting it all together. So I'll give you a few moments to read that. Okay, do you have any questions so far or at all? Because actually we're at the end. So do you have any questions about the structure, how to identify trends, how to select data? Okay, so Amal, you should try to divide the sentences. As I said, try to keep them simple, because when we're writing about data, we're using lots of numbers. It can get confusing if we have too much in one sentence. So try to keep them simple. Okay, with the last paragraph, try to keep it 1 to 2 sentences. If you just get one graph, so in some writing task 1, you get just a line graph or just a pie chart. In that case, your last paragraph can just be 1 sentence. But in this case, it's a double chart question. So therefore, you're summarizing 2 things. So you can write 2 sentences in the last paragraph. Okay, Stephanie, writing task 1 is all about answering or describing a chart or a graph or data. Writing task 2 is an essay. So you won't be analyzing charts or graphs or writing about data. So it's a different type of task. And that's a different webinar. Okay, so Moza, I'm going to go back to your question. Just give me a moment. So Moza is asking about the first one that we looked at. If there's no data given, do we need to guess? Now, there's always going to be data given. You never guess. You're only describing what you see. So here we see that there's 10%, which means that although no data is given for the brown, we know that it's going to be 90%. Okay, here, although it tells us the blue is 50, no data is given for the brown, but we all know that that means it would be 50%. So it's not a guess, it's it's common sense. Okay, so although it doesn't state the data here, we just use our knowledge of mathematics to figure it out. Okay, does that answer your question? Okay, good. All right, everyone, thank you very much for joining me. Hopefully, I've demystified the IELTS writing task 1 a little bit for you. It's very formulaic. So you've only got 20 minutes. If you do happen to get something like this, break it down, look at the first chart, ask yourself, what is it showing me? What do I see? What's the pattern here? So actually, it's all about recognizing a pattern and then simplify it. Then you want to go into detail, keeping your sentences simple and short, and then summarizing the main trends at the end. So 20 minutes, 150 words. To count your words, you don't have time to go through and count 150 words. So a quick tip to do that, or to get an estimate, is to just count the number of words on your first line, and then count the amount of lines you have and multiply them. Multiply the number of words on your first line, say 10, by the amount of lines you have, and that'll give you an estimate. If you've only got about 150 or a little bit less, it's not going to be enough. It needs to be 150 or more, okay? Which means that you can probably go back to paragraph 3 and add a bit of detail. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much. And thanks, Stephanie, even though this was the wrong class, but hopefully you learned something valuable. All right, see you guys next week. Bye.